28% of the Earth's crust is made of silicon. It is, by mass, the second most abundant element on this planet, just behind oxygen. And yet, right now, the global economy, every military on Earth, and the device you're using to hear my voice all depend on a single company, on a single island that knows how to turn that common element into something no nation can live without. This is the history of silicon and how it quietly became the most strategically important material in human civilization. This is Object Origins, where we trace the materials that built the modern world back to the moments that made them matter. Worth saying up front, some of the geopolitical analysis here reflects widely discussed strategic frameworks, not certainties. Predictions about international conflict are inherently speculative. With that said, what we're covering today isn't speculation. It's a chain of real events, a physicist's toxic ego, a betrayal that created an entire industry, a manufacturing process so extreme it borders on absurd, and a geopolitical standoff that might be the most important one you've never fully understood. And all of it traces back to the same element sitting on every beach on Earth. Silicon is everywhere. It's in sand, in clay, in glass, in concrete. For most of human history, that's all it was, construction material. Useful, sure, but unremarkable. What makes silicon extraordinary isn't what it does, it's what it almost does. Silicon is a semiconductor. It doesn't conduct electricity well, and it doesn't block it either. It sits in between. And that strange middle ground turned out to be the most important property any material has ever had. Because a material that conducts electricity a little bit is a material you can control. You can switch it on, switch it off, make it represent a 1 or a 0. In 1947, at Bell Labs in New Jersey, 3 physicists, William Shockley, John Bardeen, and Walter Brattain, demonstrated something called a transistor, a tiny device made from semiconductor material that could amplify and switch electronic signals. No moving parts, no vacuum tubes, no heat problems. It was small, it was fast, and it was built on the electrical properties of elements like germanium and eventually silicon. That invention is the foundation of every piece of digital technology that exists today. Every single one. And it started with a material so ordinary, you've probably washed it off your feet. Shockley won the Nobel Prize in 1956. He was brilliant. He was also, by nearly every account, a terrible person to work for. Paranoid, controlling, and deeply difficult. He'd moved to Mountain View, California, and started his own semiconductor company, recruiting the best young engineers he could find. 8 of them couldn't take it. In 1957, they left, all at once, and founded Fairchild Semiconductor. Shockley called them the Traitorous 8. The name stuck. But here's what matters about that betrayal. Those 8 men didn't just start one company. They started an ecosystem. From Fairchild came Intel. From Fairchild came AMD. The entire Silicon Valley history, the reason that specific stretch of California became the center of the technology world, traces back to one research group that fell apart because of one man's personality. That's worth sitting with. The global tech industry, a sector worth trillions, exists in its current form because 8 engineers walked out of a room. The material gave them the physics. The betrayal gave them the geography. In 1965, Gordon Moore, one of the Traitorous 8, later co-founder of Intel, observed that the number of transistors on a chip seemed to double roughly every 2 years. He suggested this trend might continue. It did. For over 50 years, Moore's law held. The Silicon Revolution didn't just start. It accelerated, relentlessly, for decades. But doubling transistors means making them smaller. And making them smaller eventually means working at a scale that breaks your intuition about what manufacturing even is. Today's most advanced silicon chip manufacturing happens in clean rooms that are roughly 1,000 times cleaner than a hospital operating room. A single particle of dust at this scale can destroy a chip. The process, called photolithography, uses extreme ultraviolet light with a wavelength of 13.5 nanometers to etch patterns onto silicon wafers. For context, a human red blood cell is about 7,000 nanometers across. We are writing circuits that are hundreds of times smaller than the cells in your blood. A single fabrication facility capable of doing this costs upward of $20 billion. And here's where the story shifts from engineering marvel to something far more uncomfortable. Because there is essentially one company on Earth that can do this at the most advanced level. One. Its name is TSMC, the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. and it produces roughly 90% of the world's most advanced chips. The processors in high-end phones, in AI data centers, in advanced military systems. The vast majority flow through one company on one island in one of the most geopolitically tense regions on the planet. TSMC Taiwan isn't just a company, it's a strategic asset on a scale that has no real precedent. Taiwan sits roughly 100 miles off the coast of mainland China. Beijing considers it a breakaway province. Washington considers it a critical partner. And both sides understand that whoever controls access to TSMC's fabrication capability holds leverage over the entire global economy. This has given rise to a widely discussed concept called the Silicon Shield, the idea that Taiwan's irreplaceable role in semiconductor history and production makes a military invasion economically unthinkable. Destroying or disrupting TSMC wouldn't just hurt Taiwan, it could paralyze industries worldwide. Automotive, aerospace, telecommunications, defense, artificial intelligence. The cost might be too high for any rational actor to accept. Now, some strategists find this argument compelling. Others argue that strategic calculations in wartime don't always follow economic logic. This isn't a settled debate, but the fact that the debate exists at all, that a single company's fabrication plants factor into superpower military strategy, tells you something profound about how far this material has come. Sand. Refined, purified, etched with light at a nanometer scale, and now woven so deeply into global power that it might be shaping the boundary between peace and conflict. The sand on a beach and the chip in your pocket are the same element, silicon. One is ordinary enough to ignore. The other runs the infrastructure of modern civilization. Between them sits the most extraordinary transformation humans have ever performed on a raw material. Decades of physics, a betrayal in a California office, a manufacturing process almost too precise to believe, and a geopolitical tension that may define the coming century. Quick note, the geopolitical dimensions here are evolving, and real-world outcomes depend on factors well beyond any single analysis. But the material itself isn't going anywhere. You're holding a piece of a beach that learned to think. If that idea stays with you, leave a like. It genuinely helps more people find this. And if you're not subscribed to Object Origins yet, there's more here that traces the ordinary materials hiding behind extraordinary power. I think you'll find it worth your time.